let's take a look at theme versus topic in poems. In fact, we're going to really focus on how authors' purpose, the purpose for why a writer decided to write a poem, can actually show us theme as well. So we're going to talk about a few different things. It's all related to theme, but we're going to look at topics, we're going to look at inferencing, and we're going to think about what the author's trying to do in each poem. And poems are really fun to look at because in these examples, they're short, and we're going to get to move through them very quickly. Okay, so just to kind of review what theme is, okay? The theme is the message or the life lesson. Whether it's a song, whether it's a poem, or a short story, or a movie, or a video, it doesn't matter because the theme is just the overall message about life. If we know the theme, then we can actually really do a good job of inferring what it is that the author wants us to understand. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Our overall question is we want to think about what the message or the lesson is from the poem. All right, here we go. Sizzle, pop, crack. The smell of butter permeated the house. I remember Dad at the stove making our movie night snack in a pot with butter and corn kernels before a microwave took over our lives. Did you notice how this is kind of like all one big sentence here? Poems sometimes look funny, and sometimes we use punctuation or not in different ways in poetry, so don't be surprised about that. Okay, so obviously the topic of the poem is what? It's popcorn, right? We're talking about popcorn, but that's the topic. We're trying to think about what is the main message, the overall life lesson. Now, is there a character who encounters a conflict and then learns something from it in this poem? No. But who's speaking in the poem, right? We look at this part. I remember Dad at the stove. And this is how we made popcorn before a microwave took over our lives. So there's not really a conflict here. There's not really a problem. It's just this is first person speaker, right? Recalling a memory, okay? And it's a good memory. You can tell this is a good memory. So what is the overall lesson? Does it have anything to do with popcorn? No, it does not. So let's take a look at some educated guesses here, okay? So what is the theme? What is the message or the lesson we get from the poem? So family routines of the past can mean a lot today. Is there something in here about a family routine? Well, it says, I remember Dad at the stove making our movie night snack. So it sounds like that's something consistent that happened a lot. Maybe. So A doesn't seem terrible. Let's see what else. Is the theme, there are many different ways to make popcorn. There are different ways to make it. Okay, so you can make it in the microwave and you can make it on the stove. But is that the point? Like, is that what the author decided to write a poem about popcorn to show us there are different ways to make it? No, that sounds like more of an article or an informational passage. It doesn't sound like you would do that in a poem. So B sounds like a lame answer. C, father-son relationships are solidified with popcorn. So is this poem about a father and a son and how they make popcorn together? No, I don't think so. It's just a kid remembering Dad at the stove making popcorn. I don't really see anything here about their relationship. We don't know anything about their relationship, right? And then finally D, the microwave ruined their lives. Does he say the microwave ruined his life? Does he have anything like that in here? I mean, he says before a microwave took over our lives, but it doesn't sound like it ruined their lives. So what's the one answer that we're basically left with, right? Family routines of the past can mean a lot today. And that family routine, you have to pay close attention because he says, I remember Dad at the stove making our movie night snack. When you have you don't just have like one movie night one time. That's like, oh, it's movie night, right? It's Taco Tuesday. It's movie night Friday, right? It's something that happens over time, over and over. So, okay, let's take a look at another one. What is the theme? Okay, same question, different poem. What is the theme, right? The message or the lesson that we can get from this poem. So, warm hands, wrinkled and withered, all these W's. Warm hands, wrinkled and withered, always wrapped in dough. A kind word, a soft smile, my great-grandma, my hero. Large flowered dress, worn and cracked the way through. Swish, 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 happy with so much to do. Okay, so we've got a little bit of rhyming in here, don't we? Did you notice that? Dough and hero, through and do. Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at what the theme of this poem is. Now, what's the topic of the poem? Well, the topic is my great-grandma, right? It's about her great-grandma. But there's a message here, all right? And again, there's no conflict, okay? This isn't like a short story or a novel or a movie where we're looking for a conflict and what did the character learn and what is the life lesson. Here, in this particular poem, in these poem examples we're talking about today, we're looking at kind of just an overall message that comes through. Okay, so the topic is the grandma, but let's think about the theme, okay? So could this be the theme? Old people have wrinkles and wear flowery dresses? No, that's not a theme. How about this one? The speaker's great-grandma was very busy. Okay, well, it says, I mean, it basically says she's busy. She's happy with so much to do, but is that the lesson? Is that like the big message of the poem? Let's keep going. Okay, see, memories of loved ones are important and special. Okay, memories of loved ones are important and special. Okay, it doesn't sound terrible. How about D? The great-grandma was a kind person. Okay, so we're kind of stuck between C and D. Great-grandma was a kind person. Well, a kind word, a soft smile, she's my hero? Maybe. So you have to think, okay, was the author's purpose to show that her grandma is kind? Well, it seems like she is up here, but then what's the point of the second stanza? That has nothing to do with kindness. So it's like, well, she's kind in the first part, but it says nothing about it in the second part. So I don't think we can choose D. It's going to have to be C. Memories of loved ones are important and special, because in both stanzas, is the grandma presented as important and special? Is the whole thing about a memory? Yes, the whole poem is about a memory, the whole thing, okay? That's how we know the difference between C being the answer and D being the answer, because we don't really see enough here about her kindness. We know she's kind in the beginning, but it's not really repeated, okay? So when you're stuck between two answer choices, think about which one is present more, okay? Which one is there? Which one is in the poem more? There's more here about a memory, right? Because the whole entire thing is a memory. There's not really enough to be a kind person, okay? All right, let's take this one. We're looking for the theme, right? The overall message, the overall lesson. All right, down goes the sparrow, diving and soaring through the air, as the sun also rises and the leaves begin to stir. Down scrambles the squirrel, swift and daring through the trees, while the acorns drop and plop and the grass sways in the breeze. Okay. All right, so very descriptive. Don't really see a problem here. There's not a conflict here. That's not the point of the poem. So we can't look at a character who overcomes a challenge and comes out on the other side and, oh, what did he learn from it, right? This is just, we're describing, right? So this part right here, the first stanza, we're describing what a sparrow, like a little bird, we're describing what's happening to him. We know that the sun is rising, right? It's like morning time. Everybody's waking up. Everything is, starting up again. And then the second stanza, we see the same thing, but it's with a squirrel. What is the squirrel doing? What is the sparrow doing, right? Okay, it's just descriptive. So this is where it gets a little complicated. What is the theme? What is the lesson? Well, so first of all, let's think, well, what is the sparrow doing? Well, he's diving and he's soaring. The sun is rising. The leaves are starting to stir. What would make the leaves stir? Well, the wind, right? Okay, so that's what the sparrow is doing. What is the squirrel doing? Well, the squirrel is scrambling. He's swift. He's daring, right? Squirrels are really, really fast. He's maybe gathering some acorns, right? There's definitely a breeze picking up. Okay, so let's take a look at this further. All right. So the theme is that life is lively, full of action, even in the smallest of things. Okay, that sounds pretty good, right? We've got a little sparrow, a little squirrel. We know what the sparrow is doing. We know what the squirrel is doing. So life is lively and full of action. Okay, that actually sounds really good, but let's go ahead and see if there's anything better just in case. It's good to check. The theme is that birds and squirrels can live together in the forest. Okay. It doesn't really have anything to do with birds and squirrels living together in the forest. That's kind of a silly answer, right? I like to refer to that as just like our dumb bunny answer. Let's look at C. We know B is not it. Right now, A feels like the best, right? The theme is that both birds and squirrels are awake when the sun rises. I mean, that sounds like a topic, right? The topic of the poem is that the bird and the squirrel are awake and it's early morning time. Okay, that's a topic, but that's not a theme. You know what? If this one word was taken out and had topic in there, then, I mean, if we were talking about what is the topic of the poem, okay, but we're not talking about the topic. We want to know what the theme is. The theme is that the leaves and the grass can teach us about life. Is the poem about leaves and grass? It's like, wait a second, I thought we said the topic is the bird and the squirrel. It's not the leaves and the grass, right? The whole thing is about what the bird is doing. The whole thing is about what the squirrel is doing. So D is not it either. So what do we come up with here, right? We came up with the theme, which is, yeah, life is lively and full of action. There's a lot of action here happening, right? We know what the sparrow is doing. We know what the squirrel is doing. We even know what the leaves are doing, what the grass is doing. We know what the acorns are doing. And so A is just the best answer, of course. Yep, we got it right. Okay, so here's what is going to happen next. So here's what's next. There are 2 poems you've got to look at. We're going to read through these together, so don't worry, you're not all alone. And then we're going to go over a few questions about them. So we have 2 poems about very similar topics, which you're going to see here in a second. And look at the way that they're written. They're both written in very different styles, right? So the one over here on the left called Touchdown looks like a normal poem, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 stanzas, right? Because we don't call these paragraphs, we call them stanzas, you know, just like in music, just like with a song. And then we've got this poem over here that doesn't even have a title. So one thing you could think about is what would be a good title for the poem? But look at how it's written. It's written in a very creative way. Poems can look so different. There's so many different styles, and that's why a lot of people like poems, because you can be super creative with them, right? Kind of like with music, with lyrics and stuff. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and look at these together. All right. So first of all, the poem called Touchdown. It's about the pass, the rush, the yards, and the sweat. It's about the ball, the grip, the spiral, and no regret. Oh, look, that rhymes, right? Sweat, regret. Okay. It's about the points, the conversion, the fumble, and the ground. It's all in the snap, the power, the handoff, and the touchdown. So ground and touchdown, right? Okay, so as we have been talking about poems, you think about the topic, right? But then you have to also think about the message or the lesson, right? And again, just like what we looked at before, is there a problem here? Is there a conflict? Do we need to think about who the character is and what problem he or she overcame and what they learned from it and get the theme that way? Well, no, because there's really not a character here. There's really not a problem. So we've got to think about the theme in a different way. Okay, so hold on to that thought. Let's go ahead and take a look at the second poem. We don't even have a title. So let's think about what might be a good title for this as we're reading it. All right, so drip, drip, sweat in my eyes, and blood on my hands, stinging my cuts, but we've got to win. Look at how that's written, but we've got to win. So the roar of the crowd and the grass stuck in my teeth, void out the pain because we've got to win. Quads burning, feet churning through every play, throat crackling and hoarse, screaming plays, so we'll win. Fractured and fallen, body sore to the core, soul floating and spinning because we just had a win. That is powerful. If you look at the way it's written, look at the spacing of the letters, look at how some things are squashed together and they're slanted. We call that italics, but they're squashed together. And then other words and phrases are really spaced out. Really interesting. So this is a very different kind of poem, and yet do they kind of sound like the same topic, right? Okay, so those are the 2 poems. Let's go over the questions together. Let's talk about that. And here's the deal, right? Poems are meant to be read more than once, so we'll actually come back to these. Don't think it's weird if you're thinking, okay, wait, I've got to go back and reread that poem. And that's the good thing about poems. They're typically pretty short, and it's easy to do that. It just took us a couple minutes to read that there, see? Okay, so on this page right here, Theme versus topic in poetry, read Touchdown and Winning It. Oh, okay, so we already, did we already name this poem? Winning It? Okay, you can think of another title. If you don't like that title, you can change it out. We're just going to call it Winning It for right now because they keep repeating the word win, and we don't have a title, and so have to call it something. But remember, you can choose your own title if you want to. All right, so compare the topics of the two poems. All right. And then which poem seems more descriptive to you? And this is your opinion, okay? If you think that the first one is more descriptive, then just be able to explain why. Explain which parts are more descriptive to you and why it's easier for you to kind of imagine that. If you think the second poem is more descriptive, if you think it's easier to kind of picture and to imagine, that's fine too, but explain which parts, explain why. Okay, so number 2 is really your opinion. You just have to be able to explain why. Give examples. Number 3 says, what is being repeated in the Touchdown poem and why would the speaker repeat things so much? Okay, and then kind of the same thing on question 4. What's being repeated in the Winning It poem and what do you think it means to the speaker? Like, what is all the repetition? Why would a writer do that? A lot of times we repeat things based on how we're feeling about them. Have you ever been really angry, really upset, and you just kind of find yourself spiraling? Like you're just repeating yourself over and over again because you're so upset, right? Or have you ever been so excited, so happy, so excited that you just start repeating yourself over and over again? Like you can't believe it. You just keep saying the same thing over and over again because you're so excited. Or have you ever felt so passionate about something? You've been really into it, super interested. It means everything to you. And so you repeat certain things over and over because you're just trying to emphasize it, right? You're so excited about it, you're trying to emphasize it. So think about those things when you look at these poems and when you think about what is being repeated. It's like, why would the author repeat it? What's going on? Okay. And let's look at questions 5 and 6. Question 5. What is the message or the lesson that we can take from Touchdown? And what is the message or the lesson that we can take from the Winning It poem? So we're talking about theme here, okay? We're talking about that overall message. What can we get from this, okay? And there are many different ways to explain this. So don't be afraid that you're thinking, okay, well, I don't know what the one right answer is. What's the one best way to explain it? I left you more space here to write in or to type in. I left you these bigger boxes because if you're trying to figure out the best way to explain the message, sometimes it helps to just kind of do a brain dump and just kind of think about things that are standing out to you that you could kind of take away from these poems, right? Because the topic is the game or the topic is, football, right? But what do you take from this? What message, what life lesson can you take from each poem that you could actually apply in many other areas of your life? And so sometimes we have to play around with the words. Sometimes we have to kind of play around with our thoughts before we can really narrow it down. And so that's why I gave you more space here so that you have a chance to write down anything that you're thinking, and then you can go back and you can figure out which one you like best. All right, that's it. We're good to go.